Hello and welcome back. This is MC1 Gamer bringing you the second game in the local tournament that was done last weekend at the local game in town in Sommerville, New Jersey. 11 players, a really good spectrum of armies demonstrated using 50% Lords and Heroes rule, allowing special characters with very few comp issues. I think there was no Folding Fortress, maybe no Fate Weaver, but the Glocken were allowed. Karl Franz Ascended was allowed, although for some reason Karl Franz Ascended decided not to show up. And then Nagash was allowed, and that's the army I played. I played Undead Legions, and I brought a very tough list to this 2,500 point tournament, and did very well in the first round against Skaven. Against Lizardmen. Wound up on table 1 for round 2, and this is up against not only a Skaven army, which is of course very dangerous because lightning cannons are awesome, and there's a lot of very wacky stuff with Skaven that you can't really control and you can't stop, and it can really go very well for the Skaven player or very poorly, which means the reverse for you as an opponent. So I was a little concerned about this game, but not the least of which was because the player, Andrew, is an excellent player. He actually won the previous tournament. He knows his game. He's got a tough list. It's a pretty standard tournament net list that I've seen. But just because you have a tight list doesn't mean that you're going to play it well, and Andrew plays it well. So he's at least won one of these in the past, and taken home the gold. So I have a great deal of respect for him as a player, and he deserves it. And I actually played him, and I actually asked to play him in one of the earlier scenarios I had, which was from the Nagash book, pitted against a Skaven player. I actually sought him out because I value his skill in the game, and I wanted it to be against a tough opponent who had no qualms about going into a scenario that, in a lot of cases with the Nagash book, it can heavily favor the undead player. So this one was when I wound up on turn 1 and table 1 and facing Andrew and his Skaven. Obviously this is something that I'm going to have to bring in my A game and really hope that things swing my way. So the rules for this particular scenario are a bit different, and this can really have an impact on the game. And I like the fact that these scenarios really make you change the way you play and the way you think, and can have pitfalls, because I don't want to just have a battle line on every game and try to just kill the opponent. I want to have some other things. The first game we kind of forgot about the token objective, and it really didn't come into play. And in this one, it's a little bit different. So this one's called the Winds of Magic. So the idea here is that all miscasts that are done will stack. So if after each miscast, the next person that miscasts has an extra miscast, and you have to apply all of them. Now this does help me. Oh, just to clarify, again, it's stacked. So if I say miscast in round 1, and then my opponent miscasts next, whenever that might be, he'll take 2 miscasts, and then the next person that takes a miscast takes 3 miscasts, and so on. And it does. There's no end in sight. Of course, how many miscasts can you have in a game? Quite a few you can actually. But the idea being that you've got to be very careful with your spell casting, especially with the really uber spells, because obviously you get a very powerful character sucked into the warp. And I'm playing a 1,000-point character in Nagash. So if I get him sucked into the warp, it's basically game over if he dies in any way. So I could lose this game from any number of angles. From the cannons shooting me off, I can't screen them with anything because they ignore intervening models or and buildings and such. There's not any issue like with regular cannonballs where they bounce, can get stuck in a monstrous infantry unit that does not die and then stops. And that's a very sound tactic. It's not gamey, it's not cheesy, it's used far and wide, and it's a very solid tactic, just the same as if you were to take a very expensive and valuable character and stick them in a unit to get lookout sirs, or if you were to take, say, a monster and try and hide them behind a building or behind a fence, and intentionally try to screen yourself from incoming cannon fire, such that you can get into a position to get into the fray or be able to survive long enough to use your magic. I use for this tournament I was using crypt horrors to try and screen against cannons. Well, I went up against cannons finally in game 2, but I can't screen them because of the special rules for lightning cannons. So I decided, well, gloves are off with the crypt horrors. Might as well send them out and have them do as much damage as possible or chaff someone up. But this could be a real big problem. I've got cannons and I've got the potential for miscasts. I do have one thing in my favor. I will fully admit, Nagash is batshit crazy powerful. And there are other batshit crazy powerful characters in the end times that have been released, not the least of which is Karl Franz Ascended, the Glotkin, also the Avatar of Cain. There's some really, really powerful stuff on the table and more to come. But in his own way, Nagash is outrageously powerful. And he's worth every 1,000 of those points. And so if you lose them, of course, the flip side is the same. One of the things that he has the ability to re-roll one die of any miscast. He's got to accept that re-roll. So you've got to really make a decision if you want to keep that roll. But that's a pretty powerful thing. Even with these multiple miscasts, every single one of them I can make a re-roll. And so that really helps mitigate some of that concern and some of that fear. But hey, if it's a bad roll, if I roll double ones, I know I'm automatically going to be rolling potentially one of those ones, but one of them's not going to be re-rolled. So I always have the chance to then still get sucked into the warp. You got to really be concerned either way whenever you roll that miscast. So let's see what happens in this game. So here's the board initially from my side of the table, and we still had a little bit of the sun issues. I'm on a different table, so it's not quite so bad. But we had some terrain. We deemed the big rocky structure on the right-hand side to be impassable, so it blocked line of sight, and we couldn't occupy it. And the rocky structure to the northern part and left part of the board was just a regular hill, so you could move over it and whatnot. Still had line of sight issues, but it wasn't going to be something that you couldn't deploy on or and move over. There's a building, there's some trees. It's not a tremendously busy board. He's got a nice hill, as you can see from the other angle. He's got a couple of those old school lightning cannons. But in this case, I really respect this guy because he's not even using the giant scaffolding lightning cannons. He's using the regular ones low to the ground. It doesn't matter, he's on a hill, so he can really target almost anything he wants. But we can see how everything's arrayed. I don't have lists because, in the fervor and in just in the climate of this particular tournament, no one was really giving other players lists. I had copies for my opponents, but they didn't have copies for me. But you can see, as far as deployment, I'll give you the best example of how things went. So on his center, you can see that he has a unit. He has the two lightning cannons. He has a big block of clan rats, 2 units of slaves. He has his bunker with his. I believe there's 2 casters. He has one of them is in one of the units of slaves, and his main seer is in that bunker off to the right. Further on to his right, he has a rat dart and a doom wheel. And then I'm kind of mixing things up here. Off to the left, he's got a couple of rat darts, big giant unit of storm vermin, and then of course a hell pit abomination who's bathing in the sun. On my left, I have 2 units of dogs. The intention is to try and chaff up the doom wheel or chaff up anything he's got coming around that side. I've got 1 unit of archers. There's my unit of crypt horrors, behind which is both of my screaming skull catapults, my casket of souls, and my Hyro Titan, which are the most welcome additions from the Tomb Kings into an Undead Legion's army, in my opinion. And then in my center here, again, you can see I've got 2 units of archers, just to try and split attention if need be. And then off to the right, I have Nagash. Normally I have him sitting sideways. I don't know why I even bothered with this time, because it really doesn't matter with lightning cannons. And then a unit of dire wolves to try and again slow down or chaff up anything that might be coming down my right side, or my right side as looking at my army. And then another unit of archers. I had contemplated putting my screaming skulls and my Casket of Souls on that hill that I have off to the right there, but I just thought it would bottleneck me too much. It would put me too much in one little corner, and it would be easy for him to go after. Plus, I wanted to kind of fake out that I might put them there, and when he positioned his Hell Pit there, and some other units, as Storm Vermin, for instance, I repositioned where I was going to place my these important units more towards the center. So deployment is a huge weapon in the game, and people really shouldn't discount it. Even whether you have a strong list, a weak list, how you deploy, the order in which you deploy, where you deploy, what you put yourself up against, really has an impact. So here's the board after Vanguard. So what I did was I moved up my wolves. I see that there's good block on the right-hand side of this building. I kind of figured that if I could hold them up on that right side, I can rip them up on the left side. And I move one of the archer units a little bit off to the side to open up the crypt horrors so they have a lane to charge into. So turn 1 goes to the Undead Legions, and there is no charging. So I do move up my units. Magic is ineffective. This was a very quick turn for me, and I was only able to store 1 die in Nagash's staff. My opponent was very adept at locking me down. He pulled this Dispel Scroll when I attempted to summon a very large unit, and then he used the rest of his dice to mitigate and limit what else I could do. With shooting, I was able to thin out a little bit of the clan rats on this side, and I think that my Screaming Skulls were pretty ineffective. So I just managed to take off, a few slaves, a few Storm Vermin. Turn 1 for Skaven, and he charges his clan rats. And you can see that he's lost a few of them. I may have actually even targeted this unit with a Screaming Skull and taken a few off. But he then charges and makes it in against the first of my Direwolves. He moves up on the right-hand side his Doom Wheel for the long trek around the impassable terrain. On the left side, he moves up his Hell Pit. So I'm just waiting for that thing to get within range so I could spell it off, or maybe get something in that flaming somewhere where it could erase its regeneration. And he ends his phase, and I still have 4 dice. So I was able to effectively shut down his magic and still collect some dice for my phase. So, and if you don't know, one of the powers that Nagash has is he has this incredible staff that allows him to store up to 4 dice. It's kind of like the Black Periap, which I love. So he uses his mortar and shoots one of my units of dogs. He's concerned about my chaffing up his big blocks, and he erases a couple of direwolves. And then when he starts out with his cannons, he has a pretty big catastrophe. One of them just blows up immediately, which is unfortunate. This is one of the things about Skaven. You can fear them because there's just things you cannot control, and they are a respectably tough army, but they're an old army. And there's a lot of things that are broken about them or not identified, like spell types. But the flip side is when things go great. It's great. They will roll through opponents. When things go poorly, they go really poorly. So one of these blew up right away, and the next one rolls a very low strength to hit, which didn't even wound. So Nagash survives the cannon onslaught for at least 1 turn, and that was my biggest concern. His clan rats easily blow through the dogs, and when he intended to try and overrun into the next unit of dogs, which I put there as kind of another speed bump, just to slow him down, and hopefully bottleneck him with any other units that were moving around the side of the building, and he rolled a real poor overrun. So this really worked for my advantage, because he's got his full frontage here now, if I choose to countercharge with my Cryptars. So turn 2 for the Undead Legions, that's exactly what I do. As you can see, I opened up a lane so that I can move the Cryptars through. This is a pretty long charge. Cryptars can move 6. I think this was maybe a 7 I needed, and I scored it easily. So I managed to get in there. I swung up, did my wheel such that when I hit the unit, I cleared my dogs, and then I was able to close the door and get all Cryptars in on this unit. And my hope is if I can destroy it, I can start moving then, and that's a lot of points to do so, but I need something that's going to get into the backfield to start taking out that last cannon. And unless I can summon something up, I just can't take chances that he's going to shut me down, because he does have respectable magic. So my regular moves, I move that last that last remaining unit of dogs. I have one that moves up to chaff the slaves that are moving around the right side of the building, and then I turn the other dogs and then start sweeping that unit off to the left. Now, for two reasons. One, if the first dog unit by that big block of slaves gets wiped, they're going to bump into this next dog unit. It's going to be a flank charge, but at least slow them down. Magic. I'm able to get a Shim's Burning Gaze off and target the Hell Pit, which only does a wound or two. But I managed to at least do a couple wounds on the Hell Pit. And then my follow-up magic phase, I have magic dominance. I've already pulled his scroll. Now I'm able to, with my stored dice, I have max dice from the combination of the casket, my stored dice, plus my Hero Titan allows me to add a die 3 onto any of my casting results. So this is pretty huge. And so I go ahead and drop down a max of 10 hex wraiths. You're capped out at 10 in a unit. Not only do I hit with a Screaming Skull catapult, but I'm not sure if the archers followed up, but I'm able to finish off with enough wounds to drop the Hell Pit Abomination, and he's not coming back from that. The rest of my shooting, I have my archers really dropping a few more of the storm vermin, and I'm really starting to concentrate on that bunker in the center there. That's where his Grey Seer is. I don't remember if he has another character in that unit. But I want to try and focus on that unit, because if I can get that unit down small enough between archer fire and the catapults, then I can start concentrating on his character, and we'll see how that turns out. So close combat versus the clan rats. The Cryptars just rip into them. You can see that I take out at least an entire row, maybe a +1. I only lose one Cryptar for my troubles, which is great, but he's steadfast, so he sticks. And then for turn 2 on the Skaven, he charges in, as I expected, the slave unit, and again, he has a caster. You can see that there's a unpainted metal figure on the right corner, so that's one of his other casters, but he's out of range of shooting with it. All the other rest of those units move up. His storm vermin, his bunker, his slaves. So he's moving up right up to the edge of this forest here, and right behind the forest is where Nagash is. He moves his rat dart to try and chaff up the hex wraiths, which I don't think he really understood how the hex wraiths work. I mean, I could charge the rat dart. In all likelihood, it'll break because they cause terror, and then I can redirect into the rear of the storm vermin, or maybe his bunker. But honestly, the best use of the hex wraiths is just to move through units and do all those auto hits, and with no armor save. So that would be my intention, which would also put me in a great position right behind or to the flank of either of these other units. Why engage in hand-to-hand with the hex wraiths if you don't need to? So the Seer casts a spell at Nagash. I forget which one it was. So it had to be a spell that did X number of wounds or something along that line. Maybe it was I don't think it was a scorch, but he's looking to try and drop some wounds on Nagash. He gets it off, and I save. So his mortar wisely targets my hex wraiths and deletes 2 of them. So there were 10 of them, and now there are 8. In close combat, the Cryptars win, rip apart the remainder of the clan rats. They break and flee. They weren't steadfast. He didn't remove all the models, but he didn't even have the rank left after all was said and done, and he only had his front rank, so he wasn't able to claim steadfast. And he flees, and then I pursue, and I just fail to catch him, which is okay because this is on his turn. And that means that I can then charge now on my follow-up turn and get just a little bit closer to his remaining war machine. So, Undead Legion's turn 3. I move I declare with my Cryptars against his clan rats, and he rolls a mediocre roll, and I roll a huge roll, and I pursue him, and I overrun him and run him down, and that gives me a free reform, which of course I use. I mean, I could try to reform to face the rear of that clan rat unit, but why do so? I need to take out that cannon to mitigate some of the threats against Nagash. I move through that rat dart and thin it out. I think I even kill the Packmaster, I think it is, and reposition the 8 remaining hex wraiths right behind the storm vermin unit. So, in Magic, I managed to summon not only a Cairn Wraith unit, which is, by the way, a minimum of 3, but I also am able to qualify for a Banshee upgrade, which is nice. I would never really take a Banshee. I'm not really enamored with the Banshee's ability to scream with 2d6+2. It usually doesn't do anything. My next part, I mean, look, he's got no dice. I have complete Magic dominance, and as much as I want to put down a large block of Cav again, or even some more monstrous infantry, again, I want to thin this bunker out. This is where his points really are, and there's an objective for the mission. If I can wipe out his main caster, I'll have dominance for the rest of the game, and that'll put this thing to bed for me, because if you give Nagash even one turn of freedom, as we've already seen, he can summon half an army. And so and here I am. I summon a Terrorgeist. So out of all the options I could have taken, Terrorgeist is one of the ones that you got to think about, because right after the Magic phase is the shooting phase. If you can get him out there, it's a 2-for-1. So I go ahead and I scream with both the Banshee and the Terrorgeist, and I think only the Terrorgeist does any damage. He removes a few of these rats within this bunker. I think it looks like maybe a whole rank was removed from the previous turn. Maybe it was actually even 2 ranks combined. No, it was only 1 rank, but still getting closer. Just need to get to that 1 row where I can start really making an impact. And then it comes to Skaven turn 3. And he starts moving up extremely aggressively. He declares a charge with not only that Rat Dart, but also with his Storm Vermin. He wants to try and get away from my Hex Wraiths, and he figures if he can pop that Archer unit, which is sitting right nearby in front, I think, of Nagash. This is a forest, by the way, this little hill. We just removed the trees. Then there's a good chance that he can do an overrun into either the Hyro Titan, or maybe even continue to move on to take out one of the Screaming Skulls or the Casket. His intention, it's a good strategy, and we'll see how it turns out. But he makes both these hits, and again, as you can see in the lower right corner, there's just the edge of Nagash's his base. He further moves up his unit of slaves that easily killed the unit of dogs that it engaged earlier. So now I've got the slave block now barreling down, and then his Doom Wheel swoops in and strikes and hits my archers from the side, which is a very good thing for him, The seer that he had in the bunker, you can see the bunker has only got 2 ranks now. He actually bails out of his bunker unit and moves into the slave unit, and that's pretty smart, because again, I'm looking to try and thin out these units to try and kill his characters, and if his biggest point character is now I mean, look, there's got to be like 100 slaves there. It's going to take a lot longer, and it might not be possible before the end of the game. So, and he's a lot closer, of course, to Nagash as well. So he's certainly within range of any short-range spells. And finally, his Gutter Runners come on. They're ineffective when they finally get to shoot. It took till this turn for them to arrive, which is again unfortunate. That's some of the risks that you take, I guess, when you have ambushers. But they're right now up in Nagash's grill, and they could be a serious threat. Honestly, I'll charge right into them at this point. I'll take my chances. They'll probably get a stand and shoot, which could hurt, but I'm not going to let them just stand there and shoot at me. When he comes to Magic, he gets off Vermintide from his caster, which I believe he also popped that one out of his unit just to preserve him in case I hit those units with Screaming Skulls or any other abilities or summon stuff that might threaten those blocks. He wants to preserve those points. Plus, he's concerned about the miscast that might actually start dropping a lot of characters with any catastrophic effects. And he gets off this Vermintide, and it just manages to clip the front of my unit. It's a 4d6 in terms of range, and for some reason he just didn't roll very well. But he managed to take off 4 of my archers. And between the Doom Wheel and losing these archers, after close combat, I lose a few more archers, and after Crumble, I'm down. I'm not in range to get any reductions in Crumble, because if you're within a certain range of Nagash, you can mitigate some of the Crumble. So this is what's left. So the unit is still here, and it's, I believe, a little bit under half strength, so he's going to at least get a point for that. But the the level 1 Necro, which is already, I believe she's already popped her scroll. She's ineffectual at this point. All she's there for is another invocation and a heal up of units, and potentially for Nagash. So the Storm Vermin, who had charged, and the Rat Dart, they drop a bunch of archers, but not enough to erase the unit. And these guys are within range of Nagash for the -2 crumble. So even though they did a good deal of hits, I don't remember if they had been subjected to fear. Maybe that's one of the reasons. They probably took off, I think it's less than, maybe not less than half. I think it's about half the unit. And yeah, between the reductions in crumble, the fact that I do have rank and banner, that minimized my crumble. So quite a few of these guys survive, which is a little bit of a shock because Storm Vermin is a very strong and very tight unit, and that really holds them up. So that was wonderful. My Cryptars charge into and the next turn to finish off the cannon, and that was great because that's points. And that's the game, because we ran out of time. We were given, I think, about 2 hours and 15 minutes for a 2,500 point game, and that's unfortunate because we were heavily into the game. A lot of things that could have happened. I'm pretty confident that I would have pulled out the victory. I still had a lot of tools left in the toolbox, but I'll take the victory. And when it came to, at this point, the points differential, I had well exceeded enough points that I actually removed from the game. I managed to take out his Hell Pit for one, his War Machines. There was just enough units that I was able to get the maximum. With a couple of the objectives in the game, I didn't miscast once. He didn't either. So I got those. I was able to pull out, I think, a 27-6 or 27-7 victory, which again keeps me on table one for the final game, mainly because I was able to deny him points and remove some very expensive items from the battlefield, as well as taking a few objectives. We both had units in our enemy's deployment zone that were not fleeing. This was a strong victory for me. I do feel a little bad that, and we both made comments that the turn was a little bit too short. I think it was either 2 hours or 2 hours and 15 minutes, and that might have been because lunch went a little long. But just a note to any tournament organizers out there: make sure that each of your rounds is the amount of time that it's supposed to be, to give players enough time to play a proper game. I don't have any doubt that this game wouldn't have turned out this way. I may have gotten a few less points, giving my opponent a little bit more time to rack up some actual points. He got some half points on the archer units and whatnot, but still, I think it was disservice to my opponent. I may have pulled out a little bit further. It may have had an effect on the end of the game too, and it does happen in tournaments. So I don't think anybody should be shocked or surprised if a game goes long. If you're taking a long time in a game, and it wasn't because we were trying to slow down. I have a very efficient system now to move units in and out for my Undead Legions. I actually start with very few stuff on the board initially. It's more complicated when I do my regular vampire counts because I've got much bigger armies and much bigger blocks that I'm managing. But in any case, look, he's a very good opponent, Andrew. My hat's off to him. He's a lot of fun. We were both a little bit tense because we were on table one in a tournament, so we were both really trying to work hard to win. And I don't think he brought a list that was any more extravagant because of end times rules or 50% rules than he might have. He might have had a few extra points in with characters. I don't think Skaven benefited that much from the 50% rule. But he was well situated that if he got up on Nagash, I believe he had the Fell Blade, for example, that he would have ruined my day. And, so things could have definitely turned out differently for him, especially when it came to the cannon shots. I got lucky. This is the only army that I faced actual cannons against, even though there were several in the tournament. There were a couple of Dwarf players, one Chaos Legions player, one Demon player, and I didn't face any of those. My next game is against the next person with the highest points, and that's a High Elf player for essentially the top spots in the tournament. So I'm pretty happy with the success so far. Nagash is a beast. I know there's a lot of thoughts and a lot of opinions about Nagash, and some of them are pretty negative. But I haven't played him a lot. I just recently built the guy. and I'm still not done painting him. And I brought him to the tournament, and everybody knew he was coming, and they could bring whatever dirty list they wanted. They knew that they were going to be facing, potentially Glocken or Karl Franz Ascended, and 50% Lords and Heroes rules. So and it's a tournament environment. So you want to have fun games, but it's a competitive. This is a competitive thing. So I know there's been some talk recently with various videos about the viewpoints of maybe playing Nagash too much. This is not playing Nagash too much, just so you know. But I will say this: after this tournament, and after another game that I had set up after this tournament, Nagash is going to get finished painted, but he's going to sit on the shelf and only brought out on occasion because he is pretty powerful. If somebody wants to bring one of the other superpowers out in the game and challenge me, they're welcome to do so. But I'm getting a little tired of playing Nagash, and I'm only saying that after the second game. I have 2 more games at least here that I'm playing him. But it's just I want to get back to some different lists, and I just don't. I mean, Nagash just seems to elicit a different type of stink eye and comment than any of the other super heavyweights. I've never heard anyone. I've never bitched and complained. I'm sorry if I'm going off on a rant. I've never bitched and complained about dealing with demon princes who walk up with level 4 death magic and purple sun down the line, or the Banner of the World Dragon, which I'm going to face in turn 3 of this game, which I think is also overpowered and way overused. And a number of things. I just don't understand why people bitch and complain about Nagash, especially when he is used sparingly. So it's tiring in general to hear about complaints about the Undead Legions. This is a tournament. You play, you bring what you want. People should know. People knew in advance. I don't think anybody should be complaining, and I don't think anybody was. There was little comments here and there and grumblings, but you're going to get that with anything. Whatever it's going to be, there's going to be that thing that's the top of the heap that everybody's like, oh my god, I can't believe I have to face that. And this was the one at the tournament. This was the conversation piece at the tournament, and unfortunately, I was that guy. I was not trying to be an ass. I was not trying to be a dick. I tried to play a tough game and win, and that's what you should be doing in a tournament. But I also wanted to have a good time, and I think I did. But Nagash was pretty strong in these first 2 games, and it was pretty evident that that the list I had and the way I played was stymieing my opponents, and they just didn't know enough about what his full potential was, how powerful his magic can be, and what summoning is really about. So I managed to catch people very much off guard. Would that happen again in a follow-up game? Probably not, and that's one of the reasons why after this tournament I actually throw down the gauntlet and ask for a grudge match against somebody who really does have some experience and really did his homework about Nagash. And we'll talk about that once we're done with the whole thing. So I hope you enjoyed this. So there's more to come, obviously. Please feel free to like, to comment, and to subscribe. And I really, I'm really having fun with my channel, and I hope you do too. I hope if you're new, that you will subscribe to the channel and, follow me along the way with all the things that I have planned. Have a great day, everybody.